Hello, today I'm working on a Dell Inspiron 3505. This computer has a broken LCD panel and a bent lid. It took a fall, landed on the floor with a person kind of on top of it, and really did quite a number on the lid actually. I'm not sure if you can really see the warp in there, but I can. And you can also see clearly that the LCD panel is broken. You can see the crack through there. The laptop works, the laptop runs. I've got the customer's mouse dongle in here. I'm going to take that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is open it up and disconnect the battery so that when I connect the new LCD, if you're not extremely careful when you plug that connector in, you can very, very easily short out the backlight circuit. So just to be safe, I'm going to disconnect the battery, which is a bit more work because it requires removing the back cover to get at the integrated battery, but it's worth it in my opinion. That screw, I'm not sure what's going on there, but when I loosened it, the back case opened with the screw as if it was a captive screw, but I don't think it is. I think there's just some damage there. Well, I take it back. This corner did the same thing, so maybe they are captive screws and they're meant to be taken out last. Sorry. It's fine. It hasn't done any damage. Maybe they just do that so that you don't risk cracking the plastic as you're prying it open. It's already pre-pried for you. I don't know. Or it could be that it's damaged from the fall that it took. We're about to find out. So that came nice and gently. There's, it's quite thin plastic here, so I really want to be careful not to pry too hard and risk cracking anything. I'm hoping, yeah, as I push down, the clips will just release, and that seems to be happening. Yeah, so now I've got the whole back edge. And now again, here there's going to be a lot of stress around this area of the cover, so I just want to be sure that the clips release gently. And on this one it seems that going in and kind of levering upward just very gently is all it takes. So I'll try it on here. So really what I'm doing is I'm pulling the edge away from the bottom cover. Just trying to get that in properly before I do any prying. Right, so now all that's left is the front edge, and I'm going to lift up on the whole thing as I kind of wiggle it, and there it comes out. Very clean laptop, and these are indeed intentionally captive screws. And by that I mean on the microscope you can see there's a C-clip that's attached to the screw, so that screw's not coming out through the hole. Instead, as I loosened it, it pulled the case apart. Nice, very good design. I like it. This is the second time in 2 days that I've seen a Wi-Fi card with this little plastic cover that holds the antenna wires on. This little plastic cover here. So now I'm going to disconnect the battery. I'm going to pop the battery out. There are just 3 screws holding it in. I think only 3, yeah. Use my plastic tool to get this tape up here. And it looks like this white connector just slides out. Yeah. Okay, so there's the battery out. Right, so this computer has an M2 drive here. Well, it's a very small one. It's only this, it's the very short one. But it has room for a 2.5-inch hard drive or SSD that could go here. There's the heat sink to the cooling fan. All of that's relatively clean. Everything's clean here. So I don't see anything wrong with the laptop itself, so let's get this LCD panel out of here and see about replacing the lid, or see whether we need to. I have a replacement lid, but it's silver, where this is kind of a charcoal gray, almost black. Wow. You can't feel any of those cracks. They must be behind the top plastic layer. This thing must have really gotten bent. I'm going to start by trying to get this bezel off, trying to get into this bezel So, I mean, that's obviously a reasonable way in. I'm just gonna kind of work it a little bit until it, until something unclips. And now I might put my plastic pry tool in there to try to go further. There we go. There's some double-sided tape holding the bezel onto the LCD panel, which I never really like because I feel like it's potentially damaging the LCD panel. But I'm just going to work my way around that tape. Okay. Nice. There we go. Well, I'm really pleased that the bezel isn't cracked from the original fall, because I couldn't find one. I looked on eBay, I looked all over, all the suppliers that I've ever used really, and nobody has a bezel for this computer for sale. As close as I could come was a replacement computer, just buying another one. So this particular model comes in several different kind of ranges with different CPUs. This one has a Ryzen 5. Anyway, I'm gonna lay this down to make this a little easier to see on the camera. So I've got these two sides open. And now I've stuck my tool in here and just rotated it a little bit. As I lift up gently on the bezel, I'm just kind of gently working my way up, one clip at a time. And now I'm at the bottom. And there's more double-sided tape holding that on to keep, I guess, to keep crumbs out or dust or whatever. Okay. So now this bezel also covers the hinges. And so I'll need to open it as wide as I can, I think. And try to get any clips. There's a combination of tape and clips still kind of holding it in place. So now I've got a clip on both corners out. I'll just work the plastic tool in there to make sure that there's no more tape. You can hear it. Okay, that's unclipped. This is just ugly because at the bottom of the LCD panel there's some tape that's covering up the electronics, the circuitry that runs the, that controls the PCB that's built into the LCD panel is covered up with tape there. And so the double-sided tape that's holding the bezel on is removing some of that tape. So if this was a good, viable LCD panel, this would potentially be damaging it. But because it's not, I'm not that worried. But I'm having to push that tape down. I'll show you what I mean. So when you look under here, you can see some of the tape from the LCD panel is sticking onto the tape that's on the bezel. So in here, maybe I'll grab the microscope. Yeah. So it's prying the tape away from the LCD panel. Never good. In an old damaged LCD panel, it's not the end of the world. So there's my tool. And I just want to get in between. Okay. It's hard to show what I'm doing and actually get my hands in there, so I have to go back to this laying down position here. Okay, so there's the bezel out and in one piece. It's got a little bit of a warp to it, but that's fine. This is pretty flexible. It'll go back to where it needs to be. So now you can see this double-sided tape stuck onto the LCD panel itself. This LCD panel is held in with double-sided tape. It's fine. So there are no screws holding the LCD panel onto the lid. There are these bits of, I'll go with the microscope again. So this here, this tab, is connected to basically a piece of stretch to release tape. So I'm going to pull this toward me. I'm going to move the microscope so that you can see it. Now hopefully we can see it in both angles. Yeah, so I can see it in the overhead and the microscope. So what I'm going to do is just pull this gently. And I'm actually going to wrap it around a plastic tub. I find that this is the easiest way for me to not let it retract, to keep tension on it gently. If I can get that back under the microscope, there we go. Just need to be careful that this goes slowly and steadily and doesn't snap. Because if it snaps now, it's going to be really hard to get this LCD panel out of here. I'm almost there. Okay, I think I got it. So it wrapped around this thing just over 2 times, and this side of the LCD panel is completely free. So now we just need to do the same thing on the other side. So there's the tab. And I'm just going to stick it on this tub so that I can pull, talk, and film at the same time. Okay, so there's another 2 and some turns. So now this LCD panel should be free, except for the connector. So I'm just gonna pull it forward, and I can see the connector is at the bottom. So I'll lay it down, and you see the connector there. I'm just going to open up the new one and make sure it's the right part. I'm sure it probably is. This company I'd order from, laptoplcdscreen.co.uk, is very good, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I order the wrong part. It's happened once before, where I had to send one back. Dimensions are exactly right. The connector looks right, as far as I can tell. Yeah, that's the same connector. It's in the right place. So I'd say we're good to go. Oh, look at that. There's a little corner of that that's already lifted. It was never adhered. That's kind of nice. Don't want to damage the connector, so I'm just going to kind of hold that while I'm putting a little pressure on this tape. I don't want to put any pressure on the connector if I can help it. Alright, tape is up, and there should be a little latch in there. I'll grab my sharper spudger and get under that latch, and then it comes up. Now the cable should pop out. So there we go. Okay. So there's the old panel. Oof. Yeah, you can see the edge of it just tacoed over. Wow, okay. So I like to use the foam pad that comes with it. I like to lay it on there as I'm working. And this is the part that if the backlight fuse, if there was still power coming through this cable for the backlight, and by power I mean there's an inverter in there that turns the 19 volts from the charger into a much higher voltage, and so it's really prone to arcing. If I don't get these pins exactly lined up, if they're over a little bit, so that instead of meeting pin to pin, they slid over just a little bit. If you do that, you can see how if this was an electrical circuit from my fingertips, instead of going just across the connectors, they'd short into one big long power rail. So it would definitely short out the backlight circuit, blowing the backlight fuse. And that would basically just be creating another problem for ourselves. That's why we take the battery out, or disconnect the battery. So get down there. A nice satisfying little snap. I'm going to put a piece of Cap-10 tape over that. So I'm basically just taping their tape onto the back. Now the lid, so the lid is bent, and I mean I might be able to get away without replacing it, but I've got a brand new one here, and I think the customer does want a new lid. Maybe I should have done this with the screen disconnected. I'm going to take the screen back out, the new one, so that I don't risk any damage to it while I'm working. So I'm going to put this back in the package. Alright, to replace this lid, I'm going to have to get the cables out of their little wire looms and unscrew the metal. There's this metal bracket. I'm not exactly sure how it's fastened to the lid, but it's part of the hinge. So this new one has the Wi-Fi antennas built in, which both come up on this side. So the white and black wires, and there are little circuit boards at the end of them. But the webcam comes up the other side and is here. So that hinge is bent as well, that metal hinge bracket. So let me just take that apart and see what it looks like. So I'm going to need to disconnect the Wi-Fi antenna wires. I don't want to close the lid all the way and smush that cable. So I'm just going to disconnect unscrew the little bracket that's covering the Wi-Fi antenna wires, which is also part of the hold down for the wireless adapter. Okay, so both of those came out very easily. I'm going to put that back in, the wireless adapter. Maybe I'll take it out. There we go. Okay, how do those wires go through there? So they're kind of covered up by the plastic of the lid. The lid has two plastic bits that come down from the lid here, and these wires are in between this plastic and the hinge itself. So I'm just going to leave them disconnected and move on to the webcam. So this webcam needs to come out. It's probably stuck in, so there's a plug there. Okay. This is all adhered onto the lid with double-sided tape. So if I can get that off. Yeah, this approach of putting a plastic spudger under something and then rolling it seems to work really well to get something that's held on with double-sided tape. You just roll it in the direction of, I don't know how to describe that, so that the top part, the part that's contacting the tape, stays stationary, but the part that's contacting the plastic below it is just sliding freely along the plastic. It actually works quite well, and I feel like I'm not putting any stress on this wire at all, really, or very little stress anyway. So now that's free. Let's get this plug out. The little dot is up facing me if there's any question later. Just trying to wiggle it out without pulling on the wires too much. Maybe I'll try this. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Now I just need to pull this out of the wire loom. It's grounded behind this little tab, and got past the metal bracket. It's pretty tight here though, so I'm gonna start taking these screws out. Okay. So that's pretty much free down to there anyway. I still need to get the webcam itself off of the LCD or off of the lid, but I might wait until I have the lid completely removed. This side should be fine. It is stuck under a bracket. Oh yeah, I can see some of the little plastic clips are broken on this lid, so it's probably good to replace it anyway. It'll be more rigid with the new lid, because this side is still intact. I can see that these little clips overlap. There's little clips that overlap the edge of this hinge bracket. There, we got them out. There's one here. There's one that's actually through. Okay. I think all that is left are the 6 screws. There are 3 on either side here that are holding this together. And when I do this, I need to support the laptop so that it doesn't just fall. They're tight. I'm going to break them all loose first before I remove them. All right, here we go. Last 2. We're just about free. We've got the wireless, or the webcam wire still stuck. Okay. Oof. There we go. There's the old lid. It doesn't look that bad. It's definitely warped. And there are a couple clips broken over there, so I'm going to stab myself in the face with this little bracket. Now this bracket is bent. This, you can see the metal. If I look at the left side, it looks much straighter. If I look at the right side, you can see that it's bent. So I should be able to straighten that here. Yeah. I mean, ideally I'd replace that, but that'd mean replacing the whole hinge, and it's quite soft and flexible, so I think it's going to be just fine. There, that's just about straight. I don't want to overdo it and kink the metal. All right, I think we're in business. So now the new lid. This looks really good. Oh, I've got to get the webcam off of the old one. Definitely never been installed before. Let's get the webcam off. Let me move this here. I don't know how that's held in. I'd imagine double-sided tape. And I'd also imagine it needs to be in precisely the correct location because of the holes in the bezel, you know, relative to those holes. Okay, so it's stuck to this silver foil. It's not stuck very hard. Probably doesn't need to be. Yeah. Feels like it's coming up gently. I do have another one of these in case this goes wrong, but yeah. So it looks like there's a little guide pin on there. So there's a little pin, I'll show with the microscope. So you can see there is a little post, and there's a little hole on the back of the webcam that just fits. So that post goes through there. And then there's another one over here actually. I just see it there. So that little pin sticks through the hole in the webcam. So there's the webcam mounted. That was surprisingly easy. So to prep this, I think I just need to undo these wires, which are taped down for transport. Unfortunately, I don't remember whether the webcam goes under or over. Alright, so I can see how these wires go just back through here. Let's set that down briefly. Let me just make sure that stays in its little wire loom. And I just want it to go behind. So there's that. Now, it looks like the webcam wire might go behind the hinge. I'm just not sure. Let's get all this lined up. So this will go here. It makes the corner here. I'm just going to tuck it away and see how it fits. It just feels like it wants to go behind there, doesn't this? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that was there. And this wire was behind the hinge. This is turning out to be the trickiest part. Just getting this wire run in the correct location. I think it goes into that loom there. Let's see if it fits. I think it does. So that slides into there. And that's there. I feel like that's upside down. We'll find out here in a second. So does this drop in place? It does. That looks pretty good. Let's get some screws in there and see how it goes. Okay, hold on. So this needs to tuck under these clips. Nice. That's a good fit. connect the webcam, and that goes in no problem. Let me make sure that these are under the clips. And then I'll put in the other hinge screws and make sure that they're very tight. Oops. So the LCD panel, I'll put that in. How does this look? I think it looks all right. I think this isn't quite long enough. There we go, okay. So we'll pop that back in. Just gonna make sure that's snapped in place on both corners. Yep. And then we'll tape it down. Tuck the wire back into its loom and we'll test. I want to test this LCD panel before I adhere it into place. So we've got the Dell logo, we've got backlight, we've got a perfect LCD display. Good. I'm going to turn it off. Very fast computer. I mean, that was zero to Windows in 10 seconds or less. Okay, now is the fun part. So now we have to reapply some double-sided tape to adhere the LCD panel onto the computer, onto the lid. So the important thing is to get the double-sided tape into this channel here on the metal bracket. So it'll go basically from here down to here and then overlap the hinge a little bit so that it can be pulled later if it needs to come out again. So after the first time I saw one of these double-sided tape LCD panels, I did some experimenting. I bought 5 different types of double-sided tape, looking for the type that could be stretched to remove. I've done a video on that. You can see it. If you look back in my videos, you'll see the comparison of double-sided tapes. But the one I landed on was this. It's from Germany. I mean, I think it's made in the USA. It says here, made in USA, probably in St. Paul or where, in Minnesota, where I'm from. But this is the German version, Montage Band, I don't know. And it works very well. It's a very strong double-sided tape, and you can stretch to remove it. And it holds up. I've tested before where you can stretch it the whole length in order to get the whole LCD panel removed. So it's the safest option that I could find. It's very wide tape. So for this purpose, I've cut strips out of it in order to fit the purpose. So I'm just going to move this off to the side a little bit. Hopefully it won't fall over. Now, I can see there are some score marks in here already. What I do is I hold the knife here and then just move the tape under it in order to cut the depth that I need. But actually, okay, this is always the scary part because I don't like to cut this tape, and there is a bit that's cut here. There's still some marks on this tape, and I'm not comfortable risking getting tape in there. I don't know if you can see the marks that are in there, the score marks that are in there from the last time. So I'm going to stop here, and there I don't see any more score marks. So I'm just going to cut it here and start fresh. I feel like I've wasted some tape, but that's okay. Better safe than sorry. I'd really be sorry if I ended up this little score mark prevented me from removing this tape from a customer computer. Okay, so I'm going to lay the knife here and turn the tape. So, I go in about, I don't know, it's less than a centimeter. It's about 1/3 the width of this tape. And I'll just stick the blade in and rotate the roll under the blade. And hopefully I'm going deep enough, but not too deep. I'm just trying to make a straight cut because I really want the edge to be smooth and straight. I can see the end coming up. There it goes. Okay. So now I've made a cut all the way around the tape, and I'm going to do it on the other side as well, so that I have, that's a little bit less than 1/3, but so now I'll go on the other side and try to go halfway between that. Okay, so now I have this tape cut into 3 strips. I'm going to lay 1 strip on each side of this, and that little rail. I might clean that with a little bit of alcohol, paper towel, I guess. Keep it clean. Just in case I got oil from my fingers or anything like that on there. So I'm going to go longer than I need to so that I go up over the hinge, and then I'll tuck it right into the corner. And then I just want to go straight. Right to the end. And we'll cut that. Okay. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. Now, I want this to come straight here. So no stretching, just laying it down, pressing it onto the metal. It is kind of stuck to the tape next to it. There we go, got it. Alright, now we'll cut that. Perfect, okay. That's pretty good. I'll tuck this up into that corner. And I'm going to put a little bit of paper underneath the tabs so that they're visible in case someone else has to come and replace the LCD panel in the future. They'll know that they can pull. So I'm just going to put little tabs of tape under that, or paper under that tape. Maybe that's too long. There, so now you can see that there's a little tab that's not sticking to anything. Maybe I'll put a tab on the top of that as well, a little bit of paper on top of that, so that when I take the backing off, the top of the tape won't stick. So I'm just going to rub the tape on. I'm going to press it on as kind of tightly and uniformly as I can. And now I'll take the backing off. and lay the LCD panel down, which is the scary part. Okay, so there's the backing off. Now I'm just going to put this little tab of paper on the exposed part on both sides. And again, this is just so that a future technician will have something to grab onto when they start pulling if they need to remove this LCD panel again. Alright, this part is always a little bit frightening because it's kind of a point of no return. Once you get this laid down, you can't really lift it back up and reposition. At least not very easily. Maybe I'll put some tools underneath here so I can get it partially laid down and lined up. Are we straight? Worst case scenario is I take the tape out and start over. But it looks pretty good to me. Looks pretty straight. Just gonna turn it on again, make sure we're still good. Why? No, let's just restart. I'm going to make sure that the webcam works. So let me just sign in. So there's the camera working. I think I can take the protective plastic off, put the bezel on, put the battery in, put the Wi-Fi card back in, and call it a day. Put the back on. So I'll put it back together and let the customer know. Okay, so I'm gonna ground myself and remove this protective cover, the protective film. This corner doesn't want to snap in. Why not? And there it goes. This side seems a little bit off. And there it goes. Maybe this hasn't gone in. Or has it? Yeah. With the wireless LAN card, it goes in like this. These wires come around here. Yeah. They'll come up through here. Like this. I might hold this in my hand to get these snapped in first. Sometimes they're a little bit tricky, and I always feel like I need to be really careful not to damage that tiny little connector. And this one's not rotated in the right orientation, so I need to kind of twist the wire a little bit. There we go. Alright, so that's on. Now, how does this clip on there again? like that. Okay, so now I'll pop this in. It seems thicker than it needs to be. But there we go, and both of those wires are in, so we'll go with that. For the battery, this tab slides under a little tab on the chassis. So there are 3 screws and then that tab slid under. I've seen a battery where somebody didn't do that. They left it like, so you can see this tab is meant to slide into there. And I've seen them where they were on top and it actually caused the case to bulge, and whoever put it back together didn't realize there was an issue, and I guess just thought that's the way it was supposed to be. The case would bulge. I don't know, it didn't make sense, but so, come on. There we go. A little bit of tape, and now 3 screws. I don't know how many batteries I've seen where they were over tightened and the battery tabs were cracked. So as soon as there's any pressure, I just let the drill or let the screwdriver just twist in my fingers and pop off of the screws so that I don't crack the battery. And now put the case back on, and the bottom cover. That all feels perfect. I'm going to start with these 2 captive screws because they're holding it open. Wow, that just fits perfectly and went really smoothly. Okay, great. I'm impressed. This is a nice laptop. I'd buy one of these. Okay, so now we've got the plastic on the outside, held on with masking tape. And then a little bit over the Dell logo. Voila. Just feel like this didn't quite snap in place in this corner. Yeah, that part of the bezel was slightly damaged. So let's turn it on and see if it works. I fully expect it to. So we've got the Dell logo. Windows is loading. And there we have the desktop. Looks wonderful. Plenty of brightness. Yeah, looks good. There's the desktop. Let's see if our wireless networking works. Yep, we've got Wi-Fi hotspots with full signal bars so that the antenna is working. I'll just connect it. Batteries plugged in and charging. Yep, this laptop is done. Perfect. Thanks for watching.